Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with Savage Unfiltered Podcast, TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. As Listen Notes says, there are 168.9 million plus podcast episodes available out there for you to listen to. So I really appreciate you tuning into mine. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show. BIDENomics Part 2. There was just so much left over from 2 weeks ago. We need to revisit and look back even at things from months ago that had happened. 2 weeks ago, we discussed the inflation that's out of control and how giddy the Biden administration seems to be over inflation slightly ticking down and gas prices slightly ticking down, still way up from where they were during Trump. And the same with groceries. They've stabilized, but they're still way up, Home costs soaring. My furnace, it's July when I'm recording this, going to show in August, but my furnace went out, thankfully, in the summer that I have to get the furnace replaced. And of course, the costs of that are absurd and through the roof. And I'm, of course, going to have to go with a little less expensive replacement than the Lennox that was there that lasted 35, 40, maybe even more years than that. The replacement will hopefully last 25, 30 years. 25 years would be a great run out of it. Considering the way things are built nowadays, I don't know whether to be hopeful and optimistic that it will last long or will die tomorrow. But luckily, I have the DTE, which is the gas company here in Michigan, Southeast Michigan. I have their home warranty plan, so this installation is not going to cost me anything. It's being covered under that plan. I have to pay for the furnace, however, which is, of course, expensive enough. But whether it breaks down 20 days from now, 20 months from now, or 20 years from now, I plan on having that home warranty. So DTE is going to put it in. DTE is going to be the one expected to fix it and replace whatever parts, keeping it going like they have my Linux for the last 10 years or so. They've been out many, many times, piecemealing it together, putting Band-Aids on, getting me by. I knew the day would come that it would die, and unfortunately, it was this year. But remember, things could always be better, but they could often be worse. I've said that for decades. I have my character Martin say it in my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. It's summer and the furnace is out. The AC still working. So I have some leeway and luxury of time to have this installed. No major rush. But the luxury items are out the window. People are paying so much more for necessities. Our entertainment budgets and other luxury items are clearly on the decline and needing to shrink. I was on the Chris Hood show last month and with Ann Laughlin, and we discussed consumer habits because we're all needing to pinch pennies, correct? I failed to mention on that show, I meant to, it was one of my talking points, but in the give and take and the back and forth, I forgot to mention, so I'm going to mention it here, that many today are opting out of some purchases. There is a paralysis analysis condition going on, a psychological phenomena, new phenomena due to the Bidenflation and Biden recession. The fear of buying the wrong item, phobia, to go along with FOMO, the fear of missing out. Rather than getting something they want and like, they're stuck and frozen in analysis paralysis because there is so much information available, so many choices out there, and we need to save a buck. So we need to do our research. Some people are researching things online and pulling their hair out. Well, if you're seeing this on YouTube or Rumble, Sneak Peek, you see my hair came out a long time ago, but that was due to cancer. 2010, I had leukemia, and once the chemo took it out, I decided to leave it out. But yes, people are having to cut back, and now there's a phobia over FOMO. Rather than get something, just not buying and doing without, even if that something would cause us great joy in our lives and at a time that we need joy in our lives. The other thing, or one of the other things to discuss, is ESG. We didn't go into that at all in the first BIDENomics show, so I want to touch on that here, at least to a point, a little, just briefly. It seems that the woke boardroom CEOs and the like, the wokesters, are more interested in chasing ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance scores, which started in China, social scores, to go along with your credit score. Well, this is the forerunner that will be coming here. Believe me, the FASCICRATS want anything and everything to have power and control over you. But for now, ESG is voluntary, supposedly. But your money might be in a fund that's investing with ESG scoring in mind. And these boardrooms are responding to BlackRock, chasing pennies on the dollar from BlackRock for ESG investments, while dollars, blood, a typhoon out their front and back doors of consumers boycotting, from Budweiser, Adidas, Target, of course, Calvin Klein, North Face, even Bud Light, not Bud Light, sorry, Bud Light, yeah, it was Budweiser. Miller Lite, is gotten themselves into a little bit of hot water. But I'm not going to go in depth into that here. I want you to go over to the Liberty Beacon and please read the BIDENomics Part 2 piece there, dropping the same time this show drops. This being Season 1, Episode 9 of ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast. But the ESG dollars is not an equal exchange for all the money they're losing. But Miller Lite did an ad that I think really people are misjudging, was tongue-in-cheek, but Miller Lite is very quiet now. They're just kind of trying to scrub it from everywhere they can and pretend it never happened, which is a good marketing strategy in some respects. Just pretend it never happened. Don't talk about it, right? You've heard the saying, if you're explaining, you're losing. So there is that. But the converse to the boycotts is that we really have to consider boycotts. We've discussed that here in Michigan on Wham Radio of late. I forget the person who has a book out now titled Boycott. He didn't create the term. The term has existed for 6 months, a year, probably more than that. I've been using it, I know, for probably a year or more myself. But we need to not just boycott those firms. We need to go out of our way to find firms to boycott, to support companies that have our values and principles, or at least not staying neutral, not going to trample on our values and principles and everything that the nation was founded upon. And sites like MammothNation, which I'm a part of, AlignUs App, which I'm a part of, PublicSq, I'm also part of that. And there are other conservative marketplaces, as they are calling themselves, that you can go to find out more of places that are conservative leaning, or at least not hostile to conservatives like so many of these woke companies are these days. Thank you for coming by. Please check out thelibertybeacon.com for my Bidenomics Part 2 piece. It goes into a whole lot more than what we've discussed today. I have certainly written about and talked about all kinds of times, all kinds of places, the Biden administration, the left in general. Let's be honest. They can't be honest. They always have to gaslight. They always have to spin. I have a few articles on thelibertybeacon.com. I've mentioned them before about the left twisting and warping of language. Please go there, check it out. Again, thelibertybeacon.com. You can put Joseph M. Leonard in the search bar to find a list of all. It will run down and list all, only my articles. Make it easier to find the left twisting and warping of language. They constantly engage in spin. And they're doing it again, gaslighting. I just saw on the Newsmax scroll about an upcoming story, Taylor Swift aiding the Biden economy, which of course is likely to be not that she's giving a bunch of her money away. Oh, no, 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 no. It's her and other influencers, as so-called social media influencers, going to take to the social media platforms and rant and rave about how great things are. Don't be surprised if Taylor Swift doesn't do a cover of what happy days are here again, la la la, yada yada yada, land of milk and honey. I know, pardon my bad singing. I used to have a reasonable and decent voice. I did. My dad, I've mentioned before, Ted Leonard Jr. and the Polka Kings, I've got my creative gene from and through him. I dabbled in music. I was in choirs in junior high and high school, and I dabbled in music in the late 70s, early 80s, but never got a record deal. So I stuck with writing articles and writing books and things of that nature. But I'm way off the topic, down a rabbit hole. But we are still early in the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast. You're still getting to know me. I wish there were a way for me to get to know you, which I guess there is. You could always go to my website, josephmleonard.us. And remember, Leonard doesn't have an O in it, josephmleonard.us, and click the contact tab, or my book site, terrorstrikes.info. Click the contact tab. Please, I want to hear from you. Reach out to me. Let me know your raw opinion of the show, of my articles, of my book, whatever. I've got thick enough skin, I could take it literally. terrorstrikes.info/reviews. Check that out. I went out of my way to put a couple negative reviews my book has received on there. I got a thick skin. I can take it. All right. So please give me your honest, raw feedback. But Taylor Swift and the other social media influencers are taking to the internet to convince you. Well, are you going to believe your lying eyes reading their lying posts? or your own bank account. Seriously, how can anybody that isn't fairly well-to-do, the lower middle class and the poor especially, not all see? They do see, and that's why the left has to try to convince you that you're crazy, you're loco, you don't know what's going on, your story is anecdotal, but really 99.9% and everybody else you know is doing great in the Biden booming, no, it's bombing economy. So yeah, believe your own eyes, your own ears, your own bank account, your own increasing credit card balances, your increasing credit card rate interest rates up to around 23% now. I have one credit union card that's 17.9% that obviously prefer to use in a pinch. I've mentioned my furnace. I'm going to have to charge my furnace replacement costs onto that credit card, something my budget can't handle. Literally, I know some may think I may be joking here, but in my future, for the next several months at least, there's going to be a lot of hot dogs from the local grocer bought and boiled in my kitchen on the gas stove that they all want to take away from us for dinner. Lunch and dinner some days, possibly, or the McDonald's dollar menu, or some ham sandwiches. My local, I'm pointing in that direction for those who can see on YouTube and Rumble, the behind the scenes raw video. Jerry's Foods has chickens, whole chickens that they roast, and they sell for like $6. Well, $6 and a $2 loaf of bread can make for a whole week of meals. And frankly, I need to pinch pennies, and indeed will be doing that. And I know that a lot of the listeners out there are in that same boat, and I am so sorry for that. And it's not going to end. We are not going to see any light at the end of the tunnel, or there is light at the end of the tunnel now, but as the joke goes, it's an oncoming train. We're not going to see real daylight of help coming until we replace this administration and learn from it. The Obama years were horrible too. Do people have such short memories they don't remember that? And we cannot elect another Democrat president for at least 30, 40 years if we are going to restore our American republic. And of course, show notes often have a link to the Restore Our American Republic merchandise that I came up with that's selling through the Savaged Unfiltered podcast side of things. I am still co-host there through savagedarmy.com. Please check that out. But I'm not joking when I say that. I've been on disability since 2004, and I recognize, like I say in my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, my character Martin says what I've been saying for decades. Remember, things could always be better, but they could often be worse. Correct? We need to live by that philosophy. We have a lot of first world problems here. There are a whole lot of people in our own country that have it worse off than we do, let alone other places around the world. But I've been on disability since 2004 and having a hard time getting by. And now with the furnace going out, that is really putting a dent in my budget, and I need to make adjustments. And that is why you've heard me in openings past talk about this being a low-key podcast. Well, it's also a very low cost. There's some behind-the-scenes honesty for you. Very low cost. This is not a high production podcast. I am lucky that I have software from Aplan Technologies and NCH suite of products that I've owned the software for decades now, which have editing, video and audio editing. So I can do some cleanup, though, as I said in my openings, these are pretty much going to be raw shows with all the blemishes for you to experience right there. I'm only going to clean up some occasional really bad faux pas that need to be removed from the show. And even then, you'll still likely be able to catch those on the video behind the scenes uncut on my at JLenardDetroit YouTube and at JLenardDetroit Rumble channel. And of course, I'm on most social media platforms as at JLenardDetroit or Joseph M. Leonard, like I am on thelibertybeacon.com, which has a counterpart, TLB Talk, the Liberty Beacon Talk, TLB Talk, if you want to check out that at JLenardDetroit there, look me up. So I've had the software necessary, and I'm using Zoom to record these and then be able to edit and manipulate if I really need to post-production, as it's called. Anyway, I've gone way down rabbit holes, unintended, but still related to the Bidenomics of our time. So yeah, low-key, low-cost podcast for now to get the word out and hope you appreciate. I am now joined by a guest, Roger Landry of thelibertybeacon.com. And since most of my pieces, 99.9% of the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast, will be based on a corresponding same-day release at thelibertybeacon.com. I thought we'd have Roger come on and talk a little bit about thelibertybeacon.com. But before I have Roger take over and tell us about himself, if you're looking on my at JLenardDetroit YouTube or Rumble channel, you will see the lovely, beautiful tropical beach background, but and I display that ironically because neither my guests nor I have the time or money to get out to a nice tropical beach. But welcome to the show, Roger. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and the impetus behind the Liberty Beacon?
Well, to start it all off with, both of my children were born in Hawaii. And I lived there for 4 years because I was stationed there. And scenes like what's behind you right now were in my front yard. So, yes, I do miss them quite a bit. And what was the impetus behind the Liberty Beacon Project? Roger Landry worked for the military-industrial complex, or was in the military for a total of about 30 years. If you stop to consider that I had a great job and I got paid well and I traveled the world, I've got over 1.5 million air miles under my belt, and I thought everything was great until somebody asked me to step back and look. Something I had never done before. Something that a vast majority of this planet today is tied down under, and that is we are so confused, so distracted by the manufactured crises going on all around us that we don't see the big picture. We can't. But if we stood back and looked, what we would see is that a lot of these things are connected. And they're connected through what some would like to call the global elites, okay? What has been happening for over 200 years. This isn't something that started yesterday. The reason it's in overdrive today is because of modern technology. What is the Liberty Beacon and why have I been rambling on? How do I get to the Liberty Beacon with all of this? It's this simple. I finally stood back after working for the very people I push back hard against today and took a look at the big picture and realized where I actually fit, not where I'd been conditioned to feel I actually fit. From that day forward, I have been running the Liberty Beacon Project, which has a website in France called Europe Reloaded, a website in the UK called UK Reloaded, a website in Australia, which should be relaunched probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, 2 websites in the United States, the Liberty Beacon and the Falling Darkness, and our newest endeavor, which I'm very proud of, which is TLB Talk, a social media platform that allows you to say what needs to be said. So if I had to give you one word, and this is going to make you laugh, I know it is. If I had to give you one word for why for the last 15 years I have been beating myself up to build a global network to where people can actually know and share the truth, the answer would have to be penance.
Yeah, I guess I can understand that, and it's certainly glad. I am certainly glad that it's there. As you know, used to write for Red State and had a falling out with them. So I've been writing for bforex.news.com, and any site is only as good as those on it, right? The Forex News has got some great people and it's got some kooks. I'd say the same about Red State, right? And depending on one's own perspective, you're going to find that anywhere. So you can't attack a site. You've got to seek out those who you know are giving you the facts and evidence-based truth versus the delusional bubble false narratives of the left. Generally, not entirely. Some on the right are delusional snowflakes. You're not going to get me to say Republicans are great. They ain't.
Wait a minute. Who keyed the word FASCICRATS?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody named Joseph. Yes. Sí. Bueno, muy bueno.
The FASCICRATS are still far worse than even the rhinos are, but the rhinos are still bad and gotta go. And I push back. I know you use the uniparty label. I like to push back on that and say, no, there's a lot of us, including me, fighting hard in the Republican Party to defeat rhinos, CINOs, and FASCICRATS. There's just not enough of us as delegates in there and fighting depending on the state. So the rhinos, the CINOs, the FASCICRATS are all deep state establishment elites in my mind. I still like to make the distinction: the Republican Party can be reclaimed and made great again.
I have no doubt about that. I really don't. And if you stop to consider that about 80% of what is beat into your brain over and over again by mainstream media night after night after night, we who have had the patience to stick around and look, see 2 and 2.5 years later, oh, we might have been wrong about that. Oh, maybe we were a little too quick when we said that. Oh, we really didn't mean that, but that's what the implications were at the time. And in other words, don't lose trust in me because I'm constantly telling you the wrong things that have the maximum effect on the lives of you and your children. Why do you think we have TLV Talk? Come and talk.
Yeah, and times do change. I mean, things aren't the same, obviously, today as they were 25 years ago or 50 years ago. Unfortunately, that Overton window does seem to keep moving more and more towards tyranny, which is just human nature, psychology, a laziness or a sense of entitlement. All these, what's on
all of
TV?
The above.
Yeah, exactly. What's on TV? I can't be bothered. But yet, as I call myself a ChristiTutionalist, You reap what you sow. If you sow nothing, like the Rush song says, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And you're forced to then eat the rotten fruit you've allowed others to sow if you do nothing.
If you do not involve yourself in the critical decisions that will make all of the difference, not only to your life going forward, but to the most important generation on this planet today, our children. If we do not step up soon, and I mean very soon, because I am watching tyranny accelerating globally, but then they have no choice. They realize that they've gone way too far. If they don't continue forward now, they will be admitting all the mistakes they made, and they will be losing a lot of ground. The only problem with that is they're going forward with a population that is a lot more awake and aware than what they expected or hoped for.
Yeah, more and more people, and I hope I'm helping.
We are a part of it. Yes.
Yeah, through thelibertybeacon.com and now my podcast to awaken those from their woke stupor. And to kind of close things out and wrap them up, let's tell people about your podcast too.
Well, I have two. I have one on RBN, and that is basically just TLB Talk Radio. And that one's on Sundays from noon to 1 Central. And I have another one on Shake and Wake Radio Live. And that's on Wednesdays from 3 to 4 p.m. Central. And these are two great platforms that are partnered with the Liberty Beacon Project to allow us to say the things we know we need to say. But, hey, the Liberty Beacon Project, the entire project, years of posts on Twitter, they shut us down just before Musk took over. We have over 200,000 people following us in all of our groups and stuff on Facebook. We're lucky if a dozen people see what we post each day now.
Shadow banning, yeah.
This is why we are here. This is why we welcome people like you, Joseph, because what you bring to the table is wake the hell up and look. It's either that or don't try to defend your stupidity.
And I try to be careful. I know one tinyurl.com/redpillstrategy where, I try not to go off into the 5G weeds. I have a friend, Diana, love her to death, but she'll walk up to anyone on the street and just start spewing about 5G. And what are you going to get? People rolling their eyes and walking away.
And pushing back. Yep.
Yeah. If I can't get them to buy into the easily evidenced Hunter Biden laptop, how am I going to get them to buy into Pizzagate? So you got to be careful what you say to who, right?
What about Hunter Biden's laptop? Is there something wrong with Hunter Biden's laptop?
Well, and I was banned on Twitter before Elon took over too, so I'm still banned, trying to get back on. I do have JLenardDetroit Author, which has very little following, that I just started up again, starting to rebuild, not spending a whole lot of time, focusing efforts more on things like this. But yeah, I mean, we've got to, I'm not saying we can't talk about those things and shouldn't amongst people who have a level that can handle it, right?
And in a place that will tolerate it.
Yeah. Know your audience, as the saying goes, right?
Yes.
If you walk into a grocery store and lead with whatever, Pizzagate, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to effectively win anybody over. And what good is it for us to just spew to the abyss if we can't potentially bring some over? Anyway, with that, I think I'm going to close it out. This was just meant to be a brief, quick introduction about the importance of the libertybeacon.com. And before I forget, I want to remind, because I've been caught in this mistake a few times, it's not Liberty Beacon, it is thelibertybeacon.com.
TLB.
Right? Yeah.
TLB project.
Right, because there's some other group out there that is not the Liberty Beacon, and you want to go to thelibertybeacon.com and TLB Talk, as well as tune into Rogers and my podcast.
Yes.
Thank you all. Take care. Have a great night. Thank you for having tuned into ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. And you can obviously learn more about the very non-traditional or fluffy style Christian book, but a Christian book nonetheless. Also, please tune in to Savage Unfiltered Podcast, of which I am a co-host, and be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. In addition to seeing the corresponding thelibertybeacon.com piece referenced in any episode of ChristiTutionalist Podcast, see to the show transcript on podcast platforms that provide access to it, like Buzzsprout at tinyurl.com/ChristiTutionalist for additional bonus material there in the transcript. Thank you. Take care. God bless.